Welcome back to the channel. And today we are moving into a topic that every enterprise team working with Microsoft Fabric eventually has to solve: the deployment automation. Fabric gives us two main approaches for promoting those assets across different environments. The first, the built-in deployment pipelines we briefly touched in our last video, and the more flexible approach, the Fabric CI/CD Python package that integrates seamlessly with Azure DevOps and GitHub Actions. We are going to check it out today. So in this video, I'll break down the differences, explain when each approach makes sense, and then walk through the hands-on demo where we'll connect a workspace to Git and then deploy it to QA using this package. So let's start with a big question. Why does Fabric has both deployment pipeline UI and CI/CD Python library? Well, to answer that question, because they solve different use cases, and let's be honest, they cater for different personality types, if you know what I mean. So, number one is deployment pipelines. It is a built-in deployment pipeline. It is perfect if you are the kind of person who likes that smooth edges. You click a few buttons and then you assign your workspace to dev and you hit promote and everything is deployed to your QA environment, like we did in the last video. And some enterprise aligned strengths of this approach is that it is clear, opinionated environment structure. Then it is built-in checks and approvals that you can have. Number three is consistent promotion between workflows. Number four is workspace level isolation that reduces the risks out of the box. And number five, that you can say something like minimal configuration overhead. So it is easy to use. So most likely this approach will work extremely well for BI team or the analytics team because they don't really want to mess with all of those YAML files and so on. But on top of that, just smaller data engineering groups who just start with Fabric will enjoy this feature as well. And they intentionally keep the system simple. Highly customizable enterprise release process may feel constrained, and you cannot, for example, run the validation tests during the process or deploy two of the workspaces at the same time. The data ingestion part and the reporting part, you need to do them one by one. On the other hand, we have Fabric CI/CD Python package. It's where you go when you say that I want to automate everything, I want YAML, I want service principles, I want real CI/CD like the grown-ups use. Well, this approach lets you deploy between any workspaces and any number of workspaces roughly at the same time, at least in the same stage. Then you can parameterize your environments and change pretty much everything inside those pipelines. So, for example, even for the schedule, you can have a schedule of every day for your dev environment and then have the same pipeline on schedule for every 5 minutes in your production environment if you want near real-time ingestion. Then it runs from all of those Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions, and different things that can run Python, so potentially even from your fridge. You can have tests, you can have backups, and you have built that release pipeline that looks like something out of a proper engineering team. So nice feeling for yourself, right? In other words, it is powerful, flexible, and it requires effort to configure. And those parameter files, they can grow out of hand very, very easily. I know from personal experience. Okay, enough of theory. Let's jump into practice, or more specifically into the demo part. But before we begin, I wanted to highlight that what I'm going to use is this Fabric CI/CD, and I will link this into the description of the video. It is an open source library from Microsoft that we are going to use, and as it is in the description, it is designed to be used with Microsoft Fabric workspaces, and it supports that code first continuous integration and continuous deployment. Basically, what it means that you can start using this without even touching Fabric itself, and do some sort of deployment and automation out of the box. And that's actually what we are going to do, but in two different ways. So first of all, I will highlight that I have my Azure DevOps project already set up. So that's my repository. And here I have a branch dev, and I took the liberty of already exporting some stuff from Fabric workspace into it, but then I disconnected the workspace from Git. I will show it in a second. But what it means is that I already have some pipeline, and I have the lakehouse already in my Git repository, along with the deployment pipeline that I'm not going to run yet. On top of that, the interesting bit, just I wanted to highlight that in advance, I have a service connection from Azure DevOps to Azure. And what it means is that there is a service principal created, and it has a certain name. The name would be the name of the organization, so the Fabric guide, then it will be the name of the project Fabric and this ID. I just know it from experience and when to highlight that I'm going to use this name, and don't be afraid of this magic string. It is something that is created in Entra when I created this connection from Azure DevOps to Azure. And the last thing that I wanted to show is that this organization is actually connected to Azure tenant. So everything is connected together. With that being said, let's jump into Fabric itself. So in Fabric, what I have is two workspaces that are still there, the dev and QA, but both of them are quite empty. So nothing in dev and nothing is in QA. What I will do right away as preparation for the demo is I'm going to change access to the QA workspace only, and I will add that user that we mentioned before, the Fabric guide, Fabric, whatever, as an administrator, because this user is going to add all of the resources to the QA workspace using this Python library. On top of that, because we wanted to change how connections are used between different environments, this user that is going to do the deployment, it needs to have access to the QA connection. So I'm going to do exactly that. So I'm going to add this Fabric guide as user to this QA connection. With that, we are good to go. But there is one very annoying glitch in Microsoft Fabric that I hope will be fixed soon. And if I will go to dev settings right now, so workspace settings and Git integration, they will be this message that you need the premium license for do the Git integration. And if I click on Azure DevOps or try to click on GitHub, there would be no options to do anything. Well, if I go to dev itself, and from here we'll try and access settings now, Git integration will work as expected. So that is very annoying thing, but you need to remember, and don't be afraid if you will stumble upon something like that. But basically, the connection to Git is very easy. You go to Git integration in settings, select Azure DevOps for us, and I'm using my Entra ID account because everything is connected to the same tenant, as I said. And in here, I can select the only organizations that I have access, the only project that I have access to, the repositories that I mentioned have everything already, and the branch that I want to use. After that, just specify which folder I'm going to use, and it will be the same folder as before. And Fabric, when I connect and sync, we'll check what is already in the repository, and we'll try to sync the content from there into the workspace. So in about seconds, there will be a lakehouse created, and on top of that, the data pipeline as well. So now you have additional column in your UI, the Git status, that will say that everything is synced and exactly as easy in Git. And on top of it, there is a source control button available where you would be able to track the changes and roll back or make any updates from Git back to the repository. So what I have in here is that for the dev pipeline, I have a connection, used that dev connection in that copy data activity, and the source is Azure Dev Fabric user, and it is using the query of select star from table. It doesn't really matter what is there. I just wanted to show what we have. it is possible to make some changes. So let's maybe, for example, change what is a query from another table and save it like so. With that, we are ready to check what we see. So in dev environment, that would be picked up as change. Yep. And you can see this icon that something is modified. And if we go back to the repository, we would be able to see that actually in dev environment at the moment, let's refresh the pipeline content, everything is JSON pretty much. And in here, you have a query somewhere. So let's start from table. So it's still old one. If we commit this, it will create a new commit message. Optionally, you can add a message, and that commit will end up in here. And when we refresh it, it will have that another table finally in this one too. But now the nitty and interesting detail, how the pipeline itself works. And to show the pipeline, I'm going to use the Visual Studio Code because it's easier to read, at least for me, from here. And the pipeline, it is the boilerplate code for Python script pretty much. So I run it under the Azure CLI task. So it is authenticated against Azure using the service principal. And then all of that stuff, it is a boilerplate code that is readily available to run any Python script. The interesting bit here is only this. So we install the Fabric CI/CD dependency. And then if something would be in the requirements file, but I don't have any, so this is the only dependency that I install. And then I run the Python script that is Fabric PI. The Fabric PI script itself, I shamelessly copy pasted from the Fabric CI/CD, and in that home you can see how to do it, and I pretty much followed this pattern. So pip install Fabric CI/CD, that's what we saw already, and then this basic example is what I have. So the only thing that you need to change is this workspace ID and target environment and the repository. After that, we are good to go. For the workspace ID, you go to Fabric and you go to dev environment or QA environment, and you copy this ID that would be in the query string. That is the easiest way to get it. Something after the groups. So for QA workspace, for me, it would be AB048. That's what I did. So I copied this ID, and in my code base, it is over here. The environment is set as QA because I'm going to deploy it to QA, but it is not the same as the name of the workspace. It is something that is used in a parameter file. What is parameter file? Oh, great question. So the parameter file is how you change those things between different workspaces, between different environments. At the moment in my dev pipeline for the connection, it is a JSON code. You will see under the properties, activities, blah, 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 there would be a connection of 8919, which is a dev connection. And I want to replace it with a QA connection, which would be this 158. How do I know this? Well, as before, if we go to the connections and check the settings of those, that would be here. The connection ID is 89, it is dev, and the QA connection is 158 something. So I copied this and I wanted to use it. And by the way, as I said in Fabric, everything is JSON. So if you go to the pipeline, it is possible to go view, edit JSON code, and you will have pretty much the same file that I have in my Git repository at the moment. And that's what going behind the scenes. So we are using the REST API call that is drafted to this Python library to do a REST call and upload this JSON file as something into the Fabric workspace with some adjustments on their way. All right, with that, what is this parameter file? Yet again, It is something that I once again copied what you can use in the Fabric CI/CD. How to? You can find the parameterization and a lot of explanation. But basically, the find and replace, that one that I have commented out, it is a blank replacement. So everything that will be this string in your files, every file, it will be replaced with something else. And that's something else. So based on the QA environment, so this is the parameter that I send to the Python CI/CD. Fabric CI/CD Python library, I'm sorry, will be replaced. So the old connection can be replaced with a new connection. But it is a blank rule, and it is quite dangerous to call it that way, and I wouldn't recommend to use it. And instead, what we can use, if I say so, is key value replace. So basically, you use this JSON path that will follow this path over here and replace the value that will be under connection with this value, but only if you have the QA environment up and running or up and using. So if I would put test in here as an environment, then I would need to update this QA for test. And more specifically, I am using this file path, so that value would be replaced only in this one file. So this is much safer approach, but because of that, the parameter file in real world scenario can grow tremendously up to thousands and thousands of lines of code, which is a pain to maintain. Yeah. But with that being said, we now can go back to the Fabric script. And the only other thing that I changed, well, two things, is the repository directory that we use. So it needs to point to this Fabric folder. And under the Azure DevOps agent, it is much easier to use the OS package to just build the path correctly. And I just limited the number of items in scope for data pipeline and lakehouse. As I said, I think in the Fabric CI/CD, the supported item types, it's much higher number than in Fabric deployment pipelines from the UI. So you can do a lot of things and update a lot of things on a fly. With that, we can run it from the pipeline, and I'm going to do just that. So I already created this pipeline and tested it, and we can run this pipeline now from dev environment for dev branch, and it will take a while, but I will come back in a second. And now the deployment is finished, so we can quickly check what we have in this step. Basically, the downloading of the dependencies, and the interesting bit is over here. So we check the parameter file, and if it wouldn't be here, it would be a yellow warning that the parameter file is not present, but we do have one. And yeah, what I mean is that it is totally possible to deploy without the parameter file, but with that, there would be no changes from that package from Microsoft. And then we are publishing the workspace folders, we are publishing the lakehouse, and we are publishing the pipeline, which is still called the dev pipeline I wanted to highlight. And now, if we go to the QA environment, we will see that we have some stuff. The dev pipeline is here, the lakehouse is there, and in the dev pipeline, we have the QA connection, hopefully. Yeah, the Azure QA, so it is different from dev. That's what was the whole point of this parameter file. So in dev, we have the dev connection. In QA, we have QA connection, which is great. It is using the latest version from Git. So once again, something that is very expected. But another interesting bit is that it is using the QA lakehouse, so in the correct workspace, even without any updates to the parameters file, because the lakehouse is referenced by the logic ID. So if we will go to the JSON code and go all the way to the type properties of the lakehouse, it is using the correct workspace ID already, and it is using the correct artifact ID. So basically, what is the table? So all that is linked automatically. Okay, with that, the demo time is over, and I hope you liked it. So this approach, you can use all of the uh, benefits and strengths of the Azure DevOps or any other CI/CD tool that you use, and run not only a single deployment but many deployments at the same time. You can run some verification tests and validation after you deploy something or before you deploy something, and you have all your normal approvals, gates, and so on. Cool. With that being said, thanks for watching and have fun.